Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Martin. There's also a brilliant cover of this song by Faust. I can only suggest to listen to it as well. There's also a short document about Salim Lamouchi on YouTube. He was the mastermind behind this band. We're looking at The Devil's Blood today. I don't recognize that, and they're not on Spotify either. I wonder if they're a super small band. Do we have a date on this? No, we don't. The song's called Voodoo Dust. It's 10 minutes long. That's all the context I have for it. Let's dive straight into this and see what they're bringing to the table today. Ooh, I like the widening out of the vocals on that Voodoo Dust part. So the verse and the chorus, I actually didn't realize we had gone through those to start with. There's very little difference between them. The chorus feels a little less large, which is an interesting direction for choruses. That synth in the background it's taking up so much space. Yeah, I like that bass walk down. So continuing to solo through this chorus. So that was kind of cool. I don't know if there are two guitars or if we're just panning this one off to the right this time. But we had the left hand guitar for the first solo, and then a duet harmonized throughout that return to the chorus over to the right side, almost as if a passing of the baton. That's interesting. Using an idea in a solo? You don't hear that too often. A fade out into a new part that had retardando into a new part. Oh, alright. I'm gonna assume that's just silence there. I am not the target audience for this track. I think it does some cool things. I enjoy some parts of it, but there's more in this that didn't work for me than did. So I'm going to try to approach this in a more measured way. Yeah, I'm going to give my subjective opinion about it, but I primarily want to look at it objectively of what it's doing, because there are some cool things that I think are worth focusing on. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that sentence. There's things worth focusing on. The first one I think that really stands out to me is a strong vocal hook. For whatever reason, this sort of heavy metal song was not what I was expecting. When I look for lyrics on this later, I'm going to be looking at a time frame of when this came out. The video was uploaded to YouTube in 2011. I'm going to guess the song, though, is from much earlier than that. It feels very retro, or if nothing else, it feels very, looking to the past if it is a modern band. And I was expecting growls and heavy riffs. It's called Devil's Blood, right? And I can't read the name of the band or the album on the cover art, so I was just expecting some heavy modern metal, right? Death metal or something. And we got straightforward heavy metal and very catchy heavy metal too. I think that the vocal melodies that dominate the verse and the chorus are very catchy, very listenable. Um, the delivery on them has a lot of power to them. There's a lot of belting going on. We actually do have a belted note, really high pitched stuff going on at the end of the third chorus. I enjoyed that. I thought it was a nice peak to the song. Nice way to put a little bit of variety on that final time we went through the chorus. The vocals are just great. They're fun, they're infectious, they're catchy. The delivery on them is perfect for this style of music. The production sounds great on it. The vocals are awesome. The drums. Well, I don't want to talk about the drums specifically. The vocals, I think, are what stand out to me in all of the non-solo sections. That's, to me, is where a lot of the attention is meant to be put. Because aside from that, everything else is just very textured atmosphere stuff. There is a guitar riff going on. There is a bass riff going on. They're very backgroundy though. They don't really dominate in production, in the mix, and they don't really dominate, I think, in the composition either. They're there to create movement underneath the vocals, to create an atmosphere for all of that. Same thing goes with the drums. They're very function over form. They're not anything in the drums that I thought was too interesting rhythmically. It's like a human metronome, and honestly, 10 minutes straight, well, I guess 9 minutes straight, just laying down a solid beat consistently. Not much change going on with it. Dude's just a machine, literally like a robot. Nothing too fancy, not too many frills, but just really leaning into that metronomic style and locking into that rhythm. It's impressive. I'm sure the drummers like this not just for a single, 9 minute spurt in a song, but for an entire show. It is definitely a skill that is not spectacular, but definitely deserves a little bit of praise. And so for, a solid 3 minutes of this song, that's all you get. You get atmospheric rock band stuff with the vocals on top of that. And I even mentioned, when we were keying up to go into the second chorus, I was like, oh, this is the verse chorus thing. I didn't catch that the first time through because they're very, very similar. In fact, to me, the music kind of lets off a little bit. We kind of lose some of the width going into the chorus, and the chorus feels a bit more spacey or empty. Empty is not the right. I don't want to confuse anyone. I think that I think it feels empty. The chorus just feels smaller, like it fills up less space than the verse. We're talking about like 100% to 95%. It's not a big difference, but it's enough for me to notice, hey, the chorus is a little smaller. I find that to be interesting. Usually it goes the other way in music. But the drum pattern, yeah, that doesn't really change much. The bass line doesn't change much. The guitar riff changes a little bit. We do have some flourish in the riff there. And the two guitars separate in sound a little bit, and that's what creates the space. I believe there's some harmony going on in the chorus that removes some of that unification of sound, and you get a little bit more separation, and that creates little pockets of space in the chorus. But generally speaking, I mean, the atmosphere, the feeling, the emotion of the song doesn't change from verse to chorus. It is just one idea. And like I said, that's like 3 minutes of the song right there. The other 6 minutes that takes us into the outro is guitar jam session stuff. Once again, using that same atmosphere. The bass has a different moving line here. I like the bass line here. And I think this is going to be a common criticism I have for this song. The bass idea in itself is a very slick bass lick. I like it. I kind of want to learn it. I don't know if I could find tabs for the Devil's Blood. I don't know how popular they are. Although I guess even a niche band only needs one fan who can go out and, transpose the stuff to sheet music or tablature. But still, if I could find it, I'd probably learn the bass lick. I like it. I dig it. It's got a nice movement to it, nice rising and falling. It feels kind of jazzy in a lot of ways. Completely being the primary harmonic device in the entire solo section. They're really laying down the chord progression by themselves there. And it sounds great. I think the bass is produced nicely. It's in the mix in a nice space. You can always hear it no matter what. And I do like that lick. I just don't think that lick is good enough to support 6 minutes of music. And you can probably see where I'm going with this. I don't know that the solos were strong enough to support 6 minutes of music. I'm not sure if this atmosphere was strong enough to support 9 minutes of music. This is my problem with a lot of jammy bands, is that, especially if you're going to go in this direction, like jam bands in particular, like as a genre, they're more fluid in their movement. Especially if you go see them live, they're going to be playing ideas, bouncing them off of each other, and the song's going to gradually morph over time. But this is literally, hey, we got a rhythm section. They're going to play this one idea for 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes guitar solo to put over that. There's no change. And it's not like we got a new part for this solo section. It's still just the same thing we were hearing on verse and chorus. So it really, a lot of weight is put on the soloists to carry this song. And going back to the bass, there's some solid ideas. Or going back to my bass criticism, there's some solid ideas in the guitar work. I just don't think that everything is strong enough to carry the length that they're in there. There's some ideas where I'm like, oh yeah, the first guitar, the one that was left panned, started off with some solid blues rock ideas, some nice bends, some nice runs, really cool narrative building right here. I'm listening to this, I'm like, okay, we're going on a journey, and then I just get locked in place. I'm gonna start bending a note for like 15 seconds straight. Okay, where are you going with that? Where do they go with it? Nowhere. Into another sound that they're just going to lock into for a while. And that goes into another sound. And then a run. Maybe they'll put a little bit of shred in there. That lasts for a little bit. And then they're back into creating a noise, a sound. Is it interesting? Yeah, it certainly can be. There's probably fans of this. I'm not going to say that there is a right or wrong way to write music in general, certainly, but not a solo. The whole point of it is sonic expression. But I found that, at least on the first, well, actually both solos, 40% of the time I was hearing something neat, and 60% of the time I was listening to something that felt like filler. It just wasn't going anywhere. It connected well to where we were. It was, coming into this idea fit, but they didn't really find a way to transition that into the next chapter of their story. And so it ended up just kind of feeling like a series of ideas at times, and the ideas themselves weren't really always interesting. It was just inconsistent. It felt like an anthology of ideas of inconsistent quality. And so, I'm listening to it, I'm like, okay, it's okay. But I would have liked the solos to have been cutting down. Cutting down. Some southern speak right there. To be cut down, to remove the fat. Maybe even cut them in half if that's what's necessary. Find what works and remove what doesn't. Put some stuff on the cutting room floor. I do like the transition, though. Moving from our left pan guitar to our right, we bring back the chorus, play it twice through. There's variation on the vocal melody, so there's something interesting just within just within the chorus itself that justifies it coming back a third time. We have that big belt at the end of it. It's the last time we hear the vocals. They go out on a high note. But during this time, we have both guitars playing. They harmonize with each other. Like I mentioned during the reaction, this is like a passing of the baton. We are slowly changing focus from our left guitar to our right, and they're playing together here to signify this changing of focus. I thought that worked really well. I just, I wish that the second guitar, just like the first one, they just had more consistent ideas. They justified their length in a way. Because at the end of the day, in a lot of ways, this is just a very straightforward track. Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. We kind of changed that up with a solo after that final chorus, which is a little deviation. But if we, cut these solo sections down quite a bit, this is a pretty straightforward song. And it's sort of the same issue I have with, was it Perpetual Change we checked out with Yes, where I mentioned that I really like, oh no, I think it was Inagata Devita, actually, where I said that the verse and chorus were solid ideas and there were parts of the jam session that were solid. And if they condensed it down from the massive, unwieldy track into a solid 6-minute song, it would have been phenomenal. There's a lot of stuff that was good in that song and a lot of stuff that just wasn't, and most of that came out of the extended jam session. And I feel the same way about this. The verse and chorus are great. I would like a little more variety to them, but it's solid. If this was a 3-minute song or whatever, I wouldn't really have too much of a problem with the repetition. It's when you drag that out to 10 minutes and then don't really put much of interest on top of that repeating atmosphere that I start to get lost in it. It's not really something that I enjoyed all of my time with. But I do think there's solid ideas here. Speaking about solid ideas, though, the ending. Talking about the song having filler, we had 3 endings here at the end of the track. We had the guitars doing their duet. I thought that was a really nice way to wrap up the final solo, was to bring the other guitar in and them duetting. I didn't know where we were going. We could have been going to a 4th chorus. I don't know. I liked this as a transition to get back into what felt like the composed side of the things, where the guitar solos felt a bit more improvised. Maybe they weren't, but they kind of felt that way. The chorus and the verse felt pre-composed, and this duet harmonizing between the 2 guitars was a return to the pre-composed writing. I didn't know where this was going, didn't really matter. This was a great way to work back into this. And instead it just fades out. And you know what? Honestly, I thought that was fine. I'm usually a stickler for fade outs, but it kind of works here, especially with the lengthy playing that's going on. It feels like they could do this all day. The duet at the end fading out feels like it just leans into that. Yeah, we could solo all day if we wanted to. We're just going to keep playing, and that kind of feels like it just keeps going on. But it actually crossfades into a new acoustic guitar line or clean electric line. I don't remember. I was like, okay, that's kind of neat. It has a retardando in it. So we're hearing this line and it's getting slower and slower. This also feels like an ending. And as it reaches a point of finality, the tempo jumps back up. We bring in two guitars and they play the exact same thing that our solo guitar was just playing. And then this fades out. Why did we need three endings on this? Filler, fluff, cutting off the fat. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Find an idea and stick with it. Remove the stuff that doesn't work. This feels like they wrote three endings and couldn't choose which one they wanted, so they threw them all in there. And it feels worse off for that. This is, I don't know the process that went into this, but to me, this is one of those areas where you definitely need somebody who's not as close to the project to tell you where things aren't working. It's where you need an editor. I don't think musicians have a lot of editors. Pop, maybe, where you have like, 50 people working on a song. Yeah, you might have a little bit more input on it. But in the world of rock and metal, you're the performers and the composers, and you usually don't have anyone telling you what to do. And I feel like some bands need that little extra bit of direction. Like, hey, nah, dude, you need to cut it down here. Not to mention that the last three parts of the song don't really, well, the guitar duet does at the beginning, but the last two sections, it's a brand new riff that doesn't really have any ties to anything else. It doesn't feel like it fits the song at all. The energy's totally different. There's no new drum part for it. The bass is completely missing. It's like they just wrote an extra riff and didn't know where to put it on the album, so they stuffed it at the end of this one. And again, it feels tacked on. It feels extra. I do like the idea in general of moving from two electric guitars with distortion on it to a clean electric or an acoustic to wrap up the song, to bring the energy down. That's a tried and true method right there. But you have to ask yourself, does that fit the song? What are we trying to do with this music? And does this work with that? And my opinion on it is that it doesn't. Not here. It kind of comes out of nowhere. There's no foreshadowing for it. The song has been at one energy for 9 minutes. No dips, no rising and falling action. One level for 9 minutes. And now you're just going to bring it down to a 5 out of nowhere and then ramp it back up. That's the even wilder thing. So, yeah, I don't know. It feels very confused. It doesn't feel like it knows what it's wanting to do. Even the solos, like I said, they kind of feel a little lost. There's some good ideas in there, but they didn't refine them down and strip off the fat. And so we're left with quite a few sections in that just, it's fine. Just like the ending, it's fine. It works. But is it great? Is this a solid 5 out of 10? I think so. Could it have been higher? Could this have been an 8 out of 10 song? Sure, 100%. But it needed an editor. I really believe that. Let me see if I can find some lyrics to this, and then we're going to wrap this one up. All right. So a couple of things here. This is a band that formed in 2007. This is their debut EP from 2008 and came out 1 year before their debut LP in 2009. They continued to make music until 2013, and I don't see anything after that. Now, that puts a little bit into perspective. This is the first thing they made. It's quite possible they didn't have the funds for an editor. This could have even been recorded in a home studio. So they might not even had a producer to help with it. In which case, I actually think the production's pretty good on it. I praised the mixing of everything and all that. It sounds a little rough, but honestly, I thought it was from like the 90s. So they're actually capturing a sound really well while still having a lot of um, uh, clarity in the mix. I can hear all the instruments just fine. This is also an album closer. They have 3, 4.5-ish minute songs on average, a 2-minute song, and then this 10-minute outro. It could be that their multiple solos and jamming element of it are a way of wrapping the album up more so than wrapping the song up, and maybe that just puts more perspective on it if I heard the entire album. The fade out, the triple ending fade out, could also make more sense on the album. It honestly makes me wonder if I wouldn't have enjoyed one of the other songs more as an isolated reaction. Granted, they wouldn't have had 6 minutes of guitar solo in it, and something tells me that might have been why it was requested, but I still think the heart of what they do best is in the parts that were more focused, which is probably what a 4 minute song would have done. So there's all of that to consider. Lyrically, there's not a lot. The chorus says, "We know he loves us," or "I know he loves me." There is this change going from the singular to the plural, and we know that he must. "We die for you, Voodoo Dust." The first verse says, "Saturday's a mile away. I still feel his burning flames as I walk through death again. Saturday burns my skin with white. He marks it 6 with a silver knife. I feel his breath again." Saturday here seems to be a person. I don't quite understand this reference. If someone has any insight into this, there is certainly an occult element to this. If Saturday deals with occultism in a way that's personified as a person, let me know. I kind of get an element of like Satan worship here. There's definitely some sort of demonic presence going on. We're going to talk about that in the second verse. But here, this person can feel the flames of Saturday as they walk through death. Again, important note. And then their skin is marked with 6 with a silver knife, feeling Saturday's breath again. Now, I didn't understand any of that. And honestly, even after I've kind of come to a conclusion of what the song is about, I'm still not sure I understand all of it. Still some blurriness to it. But the second verse says, "Drowning only feet from the shore, sleeping an endless sleep, but violently awake we wait." So they were dead, face down in the water off the shore, and then they woke up from their death. It says, "We walk thousands of yards that he lays for us, and we do his work. His will is thus. We're violently awake and we wait." To me, this sounds like necromancy. They were dead, they've been risen from their dead, and they work tirelessly for him. Saturday, I assume here. But, I mean, control over the dead, that's a necromancer's work right there. I don't necessarily get all of this, but that's my conclusion. This is a song from the perspective of the dead being risen to work for a necromancer. And I think this is the first time I've ever heard a song from that perspective. We've heard songs of necromancers. We've heard songs of people raising the dead. Never heard a song from the perspective of those that are raised, the mindless dead left to toil endlessly for a maker. That's interesting. The idea of working endlessly and knowing he loves us. He must, right? He made us. Our life is for you. This idea of working endlessly and mindlessly for someone who created you because you believe they love you kind of works with the length of the song and the solos. They just kind of keep going. I kind of mentioned that they kind of lose the plot at times. Some ideas just not really working well together. But if it's supposed to symbolize the endless work of a reconstructed corpse, yeah, that kind of works. I think that lines up in ways. I don't know if they intended that. And if not, I kind of feel bad for comparing the guitar solos to a mindless zombie. But, I mean, that kind of works. And even bringing back the idea of voodoo dust. Voodoo is a bit of a racist term that the Western world had for the witch doctor magics of the African tribes, which again, that's also witch doctor, kind of a borderline racist term too. And but a lot of it was because of the zombie. The idea that I wish I remembered more of this. I looked it up a long time ago when I was really interested in the origin of zombies, and a lot of it comes from what the Western world deemed was witchcraft and voodoo work of African witch doctors, and how they could raise the dead or something like that. Um, and so, if this song is about raising the dead, and it uses the term voodoo dust, I do think that's another link that we are looking at reanimated corpses. Even if, like I said, the vocabulary is a little dated, even for 2008, it does put a little bit more perspective on that. All right, those are my thoughts. Devil's Blood, Voodoo Dust. Not my favorite song, but ended up enjoying parts of it. I know I went kind of hard on it, but sometimes people need that push. You can't get better if you don't get any criticism. And I tried to praise what I think it did well too. Although Devil's Blood isn't around anymore either. Although well, they could be under a different name. Band members could be under different bands. That could always happen too. Anyways, I also just like being honest. I think that's an important part of who I am. Sorry. I'm rambling at this point. Let's wrap this up. These are my thoughts. What are yours? Did you enjoy this? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you want to add on to anything that I said? Put any of that and any interpretations or thoughts you have down into the comment section. Let me know what's up. Above that, in the description box, you can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. All that's in the Linktree link. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.